All right. So, as HR practitioners, have you ever wondered why it is so challenging to fill up vacancies while unemployment rate continues to rise? There seems to always be a gap, right? So, for Anticipate This, we talk about the state of our education and how this contributes to the employability of the Filipino youth. Our guest for this segment is an education and capital development specialist with significant experience in nonprofit management, program management, public policy, and communications. She is currently the executive director of Philippine Business for Education, and she is an independent director of a fintech startup. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Ms. Love Basillote.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Joan. Good to see
Hi,
you.
hi.
Good to meet you.
Thank you for joining us today. All
The
right.
pleasure is all mine.
I really admire PBED's advocacy of linking learning with employability. So, in your stay in PBED, what has been your area of focus to ensure that the youth, the Filipino youth, is ready to join the workforce upon graduation?
So, our mission at Philippine Business for Education has been with the private sector pushing for an education system that enables every Filipino to lead productive lives and contribute to national development. In service to that mission, we have two areas of focus, or we call it areas of work. The first one being teaching and learning, so making sure that we have a system, an education system that really produces graduates that have learned the basic competencies that are able to be part of the workforce. And then the second area of work is workforce development. And here we bring together government, industry, academia to address precisely what you were talking about, the future of work. How do we actually create a workforce development system that will prepare people for the ever changing world of work. Key to our approach has been industry participation. Um, in many of our advocacies and programs, and I can list you some of many of our projects. I guess we can talk about that some more as we go through this conversation. But yeah, the idea is really like people like you, people who are watching the show today, are really key to what we do, getting the private sector involved, not just in training but also in our advocacy work.
Okay. Is this what Youth Works? Also checked your website, your Facebook. You have many materials there, and some of the projects that I saw is Youth Works PH. Can you tell me more about this project?
Yeah, so thanks for doing research on what we do. So YouthWorks PH is our youth employability program that's being funded by or in partnership, or being implemented in partnership with USAID. And the idea is really simple. We work with the private sector. It's private sector driven. Actually, we work with them. Basically, they identify their training needs. We then recruit youth that are out of a job and not in school, and give them on the job training, or we call it work based training. So the idea is half of the time they spend in company, half of the time they spend in school, or they learn the technical competencies needed for the job. And yeah, so the goal is to get as many of them employed by the end of the project. But actually, really, the idea is to get as many of them employed by the end of the training program. And we're very happy to see like preliminary data showing that, like after going through our training program, and this is really partly or largely thanks to the partnership we have with the private sector, 80% of them end up being either in school or already at work. So pretty good numbers, considering that we were doing all of this training during the pandemic years.
Okay, it's very interesting. Now, in 2013, the Philippines has shifted the education system to K to 12.
Yeah.
How did this affect like our students? Has this been advantageous, or ano ba, did it help in the transition also of our graduates to the workplace?
I would say it has been advantageous, as
Mhm.
you know. And actually PMAP, I think, was a partner of PBED in pushing for the shift to a K to 12 system. We were very much behind, with the rest of the world, from the rest of the world, when it came to the number of years that they've been investing in their youth, so like, I think we were only, with Angola and Djibouti, when it came to like, when with having like a K to 10
Mhm.
system. And even now they've already shifted to a K to 12, so basically everyone's already on the K to 12. So it was just really, like, it was about time, that we caught up with the rest of the world. So advantageous in the sense that we're now at par, right, with what is the global standard. But I guess more specifically, the reason why I think the K to 12 shift has been advantageous, um, basically, my reasons are, three reasons. The first one, basically, we gave them more time to build basic skills, right?
Mhm.
Before, it was 10 years, the curriculum
Right.
was super cramped, you had to learn everything like super fast. But now
Mhm.
we have a bit more time, to learn the basics. Although there still needs to there's still a lot of things that need to happen in order for us to do that, but more time. The second reason, that I think it has been advantageous, is it also allowed, with the addition of senior high school, it has allowed the youth to explore, post-secondary options, right?
Mhm.
So before, I don't know, I don't did you do K-12? But I didn't. And I remember going to college like at 15, right? Like saying, "Oh my God, I'm supposed to like know already what I want to do in life." Like,
Right.
that's super young. I
It's a
was
lot of pressure, right?
a lot of pressure, and I didn't even know what I really, like, wanted to do. And especially because, like, the kind of schooling I want, or the education I wanted to do, or training that I wanted to do, I had no role models at home, because my parents were,
Mhm.
like, business people, where I wanted to do political science. Like, no one could really guide me, right? So with the
Mhm.
senior high school, you give the youth time to explore what possible options they could have, post high school. And then the third reason, and I think this was really like brilliant with the K to 12, is it has allowed people to actually work post basic education, post K to 12.
Mhm.
um there in the Philippines, there is a premium for college, graduates, and a lot of hiring managers look for that. um but I'm sure hiring managers also know that many jobs actually do not require college, degrees. And so,
Mhm.
it also allowed people to kind of match their education investments with whatever that exists in the labor market. So, for these three reasons, I think, K to 12 has been advantageous for youth.
All right. What about the new jobs that pop up right now? There are so many new positions that were non-existent like 10 years ago. How have we adapted to these changes, and how do we prepare for what's to come in the future?
Yeah, I think it's not. I think, I guess, borrowing from the discussion earlier, of Lawrence and
Mhm.
the other guest. Um, it's Jules, I think.
Yeah.
This isn't unique. This isn't unique to our time, right? Like, this whole
Mhm.
changes, new jobs, actually,
Yeah.
throughout history, we as a people actually have experienced these disruptions. Um, I think, in terms of preparation, really, K to 12 is the first one that we did well. Like, shifting to
Mhm.
K to 12, because as I said earlier, like, we need time to explore, we need time to like build the basic foundations, because it's very important, right? Like, for you to be able to read, to do like numeracy, to understand what you're reading, so that, given the new information that comes in, you can then make the right decisions. You can then, make the appropriate investments in yourself and also in your team. um,
Mhm.
the other thing that, I have seen through in my 10 years of working in PBED, and working with PMAP and industry partners, I think we've done well, when it came. We've done super well when it comes to bringing together government, industry, and academe together. I think more and more now, there is openness to talk and to kind of like, share what our needs are, right? Like, sometimes, I guess you can relate as an HR professional, like the traditional view has been HR and companies are the passive recipients of the products of our education system.
Yeah.
But what we are seeing is that cannot really happen given the hyper speed by which things are moving,
Mhm.
like new things coming up, things being obsolete. And so you really need to constantly talk and come together, like, around the same table and share needs, but also, resources in order for you to address these gaps. Um, and I think I just want to zero in on information. And here we actually have an initiative that's being funded by the Australian government. It's called A Future That Works. And the idea is bringing together sectors. Currently,
Mhm.
we are working with three sectors: food, fruit and vegetable, analytics, and the third one being semiconductors. And the idea is, the sector comes together, they identify jobs of the future, skills requirements in the next 3 to 5 years, and then
Mhm.
working with as a sector, working with schools and training institutions to really train people for these, in demand jobs and skills. And here we are seeing really significant collaboration among private sector partners.
Mhm.
And then I think, in terms of, future looking initiatives, the EdCom 2, or the Education Commission 2 law, has lapsed into law last month. And I think, like, our education system, it's about time that our education system is rethought, and maybe, after that rethinking, a decision is made such that there will be an overhaul, because the way our education and human capital development system is organized now, it's very disconnected, and people get passed on from one agency to another. So there has to be, this holistic view of how we prepare our people for the future, given these rapid changes, given the hyper speed by which things move. And so, yeah, like those three preparations, I think initiatives, or if you want to call it that, would be helpful in order for us to prepare for the future.
Yeah. Well, the topic today is so interesting, and it's so sad that we have such limited time. But for my last question, you mentioned a while ago that initially we were just passive recipients, right, of the academe of the education system. How can we take a more active role? You mentioned you have partnerships already, but for our audience today, how can they support this cause? How can we work together?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, because that's really the most important one, I think. So, two things. The first one, please be a training partner, and also, I guess, an advocacy partner as well. Training partner, I think this is something that you already do. Some of you probably are already partners with us for many of our projects.
Mhm.
But I encourage everyone else who is not yet a partner, be a training partner, as early as you can, right? Like, not when they're already hired by you. And I understand that, there are also cost implications and stuff, but really, when you invest in the youth or in your future workforce early, you will also reap bigger rewards, right?
Mhm.
Because you have
That's
more
correct.
loyalty, you have people who are really trained to be productive on day one. Advocacy partner is very important, because we really believe in PBED that private sector industry has a lot of say, that should have a lot of say, and has an important voice in the whole advocacy space for education and employment. And
Mhm.
we need to hear from you. We need your voice to be as loud, if not louder, than, academics, and when it comes to preparing our youth for the future of work. And then, I guess, more practically, and you might be wondering, oh, how might we reach you?
Yeah.
um, you can email us, info@pbed.ph, or you can also visit our various Facebook pages.
Mhm.
Information on all of our programs, all of our advocacies. is there. So please, do visit our pages, and be like Joan, doing research on us prior to this interview. Yeah, I would love to hear from you, and rest assured that we will respond to all of your emails and all of your messages.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us, love. And I hope that we all take on a more active role because this is for our future after all. So, again, thank you. And back to you, Joanne.